Welcome to The Focused View, the podcast for eye care professionals across Australia. Brought to you by Opto-K. In each episode, we bring together leading eye care, optical and business professionals to share valuable insights, practical tips, and the latest trends shaping the optical business landscape. I'm your host, Michael Nasser, and together we'll explore innovative strategies for practice growth, patient care, and business success in the eye care industry. Whether you're starting your career, managing a practice, or just looking to stay ahead of the field, The Focused View is your source for inspiration and knowledge. In today's episode, we're privileged to be joined by Jagrut Lallu, an optometrist who's made significant contributions to myopia management and is an ambassador for the International Myopia Institute. Jagrut founded New Zealand's first myopia control clinic and has led the way in innovative treatments like ortho-keratology. We'll talk about his journey, what motivated him to establish the clinic, and the valuable outcomes he's seen from it. Jagrut will also share his insights on integrating myopia management into optometry practices, the business impact it can have, and the future of the field as new advancements and research emerge. This episode is not only about understanding the science of myopia management, but also about exploring how it could effectively be implemented into a practice. So let's jump in. Welcome to the show, Jagrut. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really looking forward to today's episode. Definitely talking about something that's quite topical in the world of optometry at the moment.
Yeah.
Very excited to do that. So I guess before we get going and for the benefit of our audience, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your background in optometry, and I guess how you have come to land where you currently are today?
Sure. So I graduated in 2009, and in my final year of university, we did a whole module where we had to read all these papers in different topics. One of the topics was keratoconus. The other topic was myopia. And at the time, that was curated by friend and colleague, Dr. John Phillips. And this is where I learned a little bit about how we can maybe manage or slow down potentially myopia with a whole bunch of different things. And that really piqued my interest. So then I got my first and only job since I've left university at Rose Optometry in Hamilton, which is a contact lens specialty practice. It's the place where the Rose-K lens for keratoconus was invented by Paul Rose. And I just seized an opportunity to get out of my comfort zone and move down here, and I've never left. My first sort of month or two, I said, hey, could I get into a subspecialty called ortho-keratology? And they said, yeah, sure, go for it. Knock yourself out. So then I basically flew myself over to see a guy called John Mountford, who literally wrote the textbook at the time on Ortho-K in Brisbane. Spent a couple of days with him, learnt how to fit Ortho-K, got him to sign my textbook, and then went back over to New Zealand and got stuck in using his system called the BE lens. From there, I went over to a conference at the time, many years ago. It was called the CLIC conference, and I met up with Kate Johnson at the time, who's now Kate Gifford, Gavin Bonham and Celia Bloxham and Kathleen Watt, which then had an AGM for the Ortho-K Society for Oceania. And I got stuck into that and I became the New Zealand liaison. And then from there, I've basically just been really passionate about my profession, passionate about my job, and I've got really stuck into everything related to myopia and contact lenses in pediatrics. So we then decided to set up in 2009 the first myopia control clinic in New Zealand. And you got to remember back then, these things weren't even a thing. We just thought,
I can only imagine.
Let's just give this a go. Funnily enough, I'm on a podcast. A friend of mine from university, we set up a website called Eye Opener, and we started doing some podcasts with some colleague ophthalmologists and optometrists. It didn't really catch on then. I think maybe it's just a timing thing. Probably would have been better if we started it more now, but we did that back in 2009. We actually had some funding from a supplier as well who kept it going for us for about a couple of years, actually. But this is when you didn't have a Squarespace and things like that to build a website. You had to go with a custom development thing. So we we did that off a smell of an oily rag, and the whole thing was about empowering and educating practitioners, or at the time students, to help them with the university degrees, because we had a ball at university, but we thought we could make it easier for our colleagues and friends. So that's what we did back then. And then in 2012, I think the MySight contact lens was invented at the University of Auckland by John and Nicola Ansis. So we got access to that through a friendly phone call from Joe Tanner at Cooper Vision. And he said, hey, do you want to look at this? And so, yeah, we did. We played around with that lens for a while, and we also then got into atropine. And back at the time, atropine was actually, we weren't allowed, if you could believe it, to prescribe low-dose atropine for myopia control. So I was allowed in my prescribing rights to prescribe 1% atropine, but our board said you can't prescribe 0.01% atropine. So then we talked to our local ophthalmologists, which we're very close with. So ophthalmology and optometry in New Zealand is very tight. So we support each other.
It's a bit different to Australia.
Yeah, we work together to build each other up. So my pediatric ophthalmologist, John Dixon, he said, well, this is just a bit ridiculous. So what he would do is he would see the patients that I would refer to him, prescribe them, we would co-manage it together. So all of the stuff we've been doing for a very long time, including custom Ortho-K. And so then we got involved with Innovatus Technology through my friend Lachlan, and I was helping out in New Zealand. We were like a postal service for a couple of different brands of Ortho-K lenses, ran a few courses, started teaching practitioners, and just essentially growing Ortho-K in New Zealand. And then fast forward the clock a few more years, then became a part of the iSpace team, and we launched an Ortho-K product in a few different countries, and now we're trying to get into more areas of the world and, yeah, just see some opportunities and have a bit of fun. Like, this is a cool profession. You can do literally anything you want in it. It's afforded me a life where we've been able to travel and lecture around the world. I've been fortunate enough to be able to purchase into a practice, and more recently we've set up an eye research centre in New Zealand, so where we're focusing on clinical trials. So does that kind of enough for a bit of a background?
Oh, absolutely. It's quite inspiring listening to you describe that journey that you've been going through and you're continuing with regards to, it really speaks to the significance of finding something I guess you're passionate about and then really following that and evolving and expanding that. And, to some extent that's living the dream, I would imagine, in a simple terms. So it sounds like it's been something you've really enjoyed and you seem to be reaping a lot of benefit out of it.
Yeah, when I started at Rose's, we had 5 optometrists, a couple of them part-time sort of thing, and then we went down to 4, and then now we're up to about 7 or 8, and
wow.
We had to expand into another sort of part of the city to have another. We have one site, and then we've got the research centre, which is sort of nearby.
Yeah, and we'll definitely touch on a few of the things that you've mentioned there a little bit further on as we get through our discussion. Just a quick question with regards to Ortho-K, and it's obviously something you're very passionate about, and its relation, say, to myopia management. Back in 2009, like you've alluded to, myopia management as a concept didn't exist, I imagine. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have much technicality in that regard. But was there a correlation between those two that led you into one or the other, or how did you stumble upon that as a subject or as an area of expertise, I guess?
Well, generally, of all research that's been done on myopia control, Ortho-K has been published the most. Okay?
Yes.
So the initial sort of thoughts were that, hey, we're able to treat myopia with this amazing product that you sleep in at night and take out during the day. But we're also noticing, hey, people aren't really changing their prescription as much when they start wearing these, more so younger people. So then they started focusing on that, and then you go, well, okay, well, what's going on here? And then some amazing work was done by Helen Swarbrick and a number of others at the University of New South Wales, and basically we're going, hey, there's something to this here, and then we're starting to promote it as a method for control. The saddest thing about it is that many practitioners who come into it new now are thinking, geez, I have to do Ortho-K to be a myopia control specialist, and that's just not true.
Okay.
The fact that you're doing something is more important than not necessarily having to do Ortho-K. It's great to have. It's a great option to be able to offer, but please don't feel like you shouldn't be offering it any interventions because you don't do Ortho-K. You're just as good a specialist.
Particular aspect of it. Yeah.
Whether the spectacle lenses or the soft lenses or atropine, or if you can do anything, that's great.
Yeah. So I guess with that context, can you describe your role and contributions as an ambassador for the Myopia Institute? Because I understand that, you've got a couple of roles that I guess transcend New Zealand in that regard. And can you speak to those and how they all work?
Yeah, sure. So recently I was invited to become the ambassador for New Zealand for the International Myopia Institute. And that's where an optometrist and an ophthalmologist promotes the message of actually doing something about myopia, not just prescribing single vision distance now. We actually have all the tools available, especially in New Zealand. Every practitioner can either prescribe therapeutically, can prescribe a soft lens, can prescribe glasses, or actually many have got access to topography to do other things. Okay. And there's also new emerging things like red light therapy, which are showing a lot of promise. So that's that role. The other role is for the World Council of Optometry, and that's a slightly broader role where that covers the whole of Asia Pacific, and that's a myopia ambassador for that. And that's really about promoting all of the simple access things we can, like the Myopia Navigator. So hopefully you can post a link in your description around that for people to look at. This essentially is a tool that we can use, or any practitioner can use, to help talking about mitigation, measurement, and management of myopia. It's a really simple tool, but it helps to communicate the message. And back in 2009, we had to learn all of this and make this all up ourselves from reviewing a lot of the literature. These guys, in collaboration with CooperVision, have done an excellent job at distilling all of this great research down into a really simple, easy-to-use tool. So if you're first getting into this and you want to know a little bit more, start with that and start using that in your chair every day. You also have resources from places like Myopia Profile and all of those wonderful things from Brian Holder Vision Institute. Australia really has a lot that they have access to. But this is probably a place to start. So that's what we're really focusing on. Like, how can we spread the message and just make sure everyone is following what we consider to be best practice?
Yeah. And I think something that, in my speakings with you to date, something that you're very passionate about is ensuring that, practices and practitioners know that, you can integrate myopia management into your business offering, as you've alluded to already. And we'll definitely talk about that a little bit further on. If we sort of jump back to the myopia control clinic that you established quite early on, we might have touched on it slightly, but I guess just to go over it again, what motivated you to establish, New Zealand's first myopia control clinic? What was it at that point in time that made you think, this is something that needs to be done?
Well, to me back then, when I was first reading all of these papers, the evidence was clear enough that this is something really important and it's something really big, because you've got to remember in 2008 is when the iPhone was introduced. Okay, so all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of this new technology. You're walking around from a time, 2008, 2007, where people would hardly use a phone like they do now. You would never see someone walking around, crossing a road, staring at a phone. You just wouldn't see that, because a phone was for a phone call and a text, okay? And so I go, well, hey, what's going to happen there? You're going to have this massive impact on near work and screens. You've got some things that are going to stop that. It's our duty and mission to actually solve this and help be part of the solution rather than the problem. You go to these conferences like IMC, and the next one's coming up in Hainan Island, and there's a reason why you see a Google Health representative there, an Apple spokesperson there, and a Samsung guy there. They know what their devices are doing. They know what's going on. And it's just about, how do we solve this? The most interesting person I met was a guy who worked for Philips Lighting, and they've got the system that is called Philips Hue, and you would have seen it. You can use an app to control the light on your house.
Yes.
They're at these conferences and they're trying to work out, hey, is there a particular wavelength of light that we can program into this product so that we can help stop myopia and slow it down? So it's quite cool. Wow. Like, we're looking at environmental things. We're looking at all of these things. So back then, that's what I was going around in my head. There's going to be all these things that we need to do, but this is a problem that's going to just skyrocket. And it really sort of has, sadly.
Yeah.
But with our education efforts, we will just get on top of it and sort it out.
Yeah. I think what's key to that is you were able to recognize really early on what the environment that society was creating might, lead to from, a sight point of view, with that obvious distinction of the iPhone being introduced and that close that close work, and more so for kids. And obviously when it was introduced, it was mainly adults that were using it. But I think, today we all know, and we know all too well, the involvement of kids with regards to these tablets or phones now is, on the rise. And obviously that's coinciding with it becoming a movement a lot greater than what it was perhaps in those early days that you mentioned. So awesome foresight in that regard. In reflection now, obviously, with regards to having it set it up and seeing it develop and evolve, what are some of the key outcomes and learnings that you've learnt from running this clinic?
Well, the first thing is you just never give up on a patient. I've had patients who it's taken me a year to get their Ortho-K right. And not many people care to admit that, but that's the reality that you do have. You have these cases where you're just in too deep and you've spent too much money on lenses that you're not coming out of the hole, so you have to actually finish it. And that's a real learning. That's a genuine learning.
Yeah.
All in the pursuit of perfection or in the pursuit of trying to really do your best job you can. Some of the learnings that I've had around managing myopia is you really watch it 15, 16 years down the track and you've made a difference in this person's world because their prescription has not changed at all in all of that time. And as much as the research says we're slowing it down, you'll talk to any private practitioner who's done it for any certain number of years, and they'll tell you they've got hundreds of people who have probably never changed at all since they fit them with a product, whether it's MySight, whether it's your Stellest, whether it's your MioSmart or, Atropine, those things, they all do a pretty good job. So it's just something to always remember. You're doing good in the world, and it's something that you can measure tangibly over a short amount of time. You'll always remember the kids that you have that come in and they've progressed 3 diopters in 2 months of Asian descent. And by Asian, I don't just mean Southeast Asian, I mean sort of Indian as well and all over Asia. And then you intervene with one of these solutions and they basically just stop. That's really rewarding. And that's where I think a lot of people derive a lot of enjoyment from it when they get into it.
Yeah, I can totally see how that could be the case because, you're seeing those goals or those outcomes being met and you're seeing some benefits there being incurred by the patient. And that would obviously be empowering with regards to knowing that the things that you're doing are actually helping them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If we sort of switch over to some of the innovations that we've seen in myopia management recently, and I guess in particular reference to Ortho-K, can you discuss some of the advancements in Ortho-K and other treatments that you specialize in for myopia management?
Sure, yeah. So Ortho-K is pretty cool. There's a bit of customization that you can do in Ortho-K. Not suggesting at all that everyone has to go out and do this immediately, right? But you do have to always take a step back and remember that whether you modify an Ortho-K lens from the standard design or not, you're going to get control. Okay, so that's the first thing to just get out the way. The second thing to sort of think about is sometimes you have these cases where things are still progressing. For example, the length of the eye is progressing. And if some of your listeners are more new to this, essentially the length of the eye grows before the eye prescription changes. So if it grows excessively quickly, then you've got this sort of window of time to sort of do something about it before you see a prescription change.
Right.
In real life. And so that's why you use biometry and things like that. I'm not saying you have to have it if you don't have it. Still do it. Still do myopia control, but it's a nice to have. Soon as the price of these things come down, it's going to be probably everyone will just have them. And there are handheld versions which are very inexpensive. So what we can do is we can modify the design to create more retinal confusion. Okay, so we want to only think about confusing the retina. And the more confusion you have, potentially the more control that you might be able to create for an optical-based method. Where I've always found it a bit strange is how we talk about peripheral retinal defocus and the impact of that. If you ever spend any time in some lectures at some of these more scientific conferences, you're going to probably come to the conclusion very quickly that it can't just be that simple. And it's probably more that there's things going on all over the retina, including centrally, that control these signals. So it's a bit more complicated than that. And so by modifying an Ortho-K design and the central aspect of the lens, you could potentially create some more confusion or spherical aberration. And spherical aberration is responsible for that confusion of retina, which can then lead to more control. What's quite cool at the moment, and I think we'll hear a lot more about this, is that no researchers ever debate the efficacy of red light therapy that's come in. There's questions around its safety. in our experience in our clinic, we've seen the most of these patients outside of China for this therapy, and we're monitoring them very closely on a lot of different gear, including our spectralis OCT, and we're looking at choroidal thickness and a whole bunch of measures. So far, we've had no negative side effects of anything in terms of vision or retinal changes or anything like that at all. So the product appears safe. Where it seems quite cool or innovative for the future, and this is where we should be getting excited, is that if you combine this with, say, Ortho-K, you're probably going to get something close to, or I'd love to see some work around this to see if we could get like a full control option. So you imagine putting something in at night, taking it out during the day, you're doing this laser 3 minutes twice a day, and then you just completely halt myopia from progressing. So I think that's more the holy grail that we're going to get to in the next sort of 10 years, with combinations of and formulations of atropine and optical methods, or all these things that are coming out. So there's no doubt that red light therapy is not going to be controlled by just one company. There's going to be a number of companies coming out with these things, because we all know it works. There's just questions on how safe it is.
Oh, and it's awesome to hear, information like that, which I guess is translatable to all of us within the industry, with regards to there being, in your opinion, some type of solution that can really assist with the prevention of it, or I mean, whether prevention is the right word, I'm not sure, but you mentioned stopping that myopia from evolving or developing.
Yeah, I mean, that would just be lovely to see. Imagine having an optical based method, like maybe a pair of myopia control glasses of some sort. You're adding in something else that's, a few minutes a day sort of thing, and you're just keeping things stable.
Yeah.
That's a real win.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's developing now as our understanding of myopia management becomes more mainstream, is that it's not a one-trick pony in terms of the solution. It's a combination of a whole heap of, different treatments and therapies that we've mentioned to this point, and I guess we'll continue to touch on some others. You mentioned earlier on Innovatus technology. Did I pronounce that correct?
Oh, yep.
Yep, cool. So how's your work with that particular company influence myopia control practices? And is that where you're seeing some of this red light therapy? Is that part of that particular, innovation there? Or how does that, I guess, link with all of the things that you're working on?
No, so red light therapy is more something we found in our myopia control clinic at Rose Optometry.
Okay.
Innovatus is essentially iSpace. So that's the software for Ortho-K lens design. But, when you go to these conferences, you're seeing a lot of things change, like the fact that with iSpace, we set up essentially an online cloud-based sort of platform where you can track and trace your orders and all of those sorts of things with a huge knowledge base, and as well as looking up your orders and downloading them to your software and doing all of this Ortho-K via software. That was an innovation in itself, and it was well ahead of its time, because up until when that was essentially invented, the only real products you had were things like where you had to have an inventory set. So you have a trial lens that you put on the eye and you look at it, and it took more time. Whereas now, with all the machinery coming out with topographers and all the different, the new OCT type tomography that's coming out, you're going to see more and more software assisted design. And we're sort of, I feel at least we're at close to the forefront of that, because we've got a huge amount of data.
Yeah. And has that influenced anything in the myopia control practices that you're putting in place within your practices?
Oh, we just streamline our systems, like why do we build the product? We built the product to make life easier for people, We didn't want rigid lenses to be this voodoo that's only for a few people in the country. We want everyone to be able to do this if they want to. And we want to make it simple and accessible, because that's how you're going to help more patients. If you help more patients, we can reduce this problem. So that's sort of our altruistic view on it.
Oh, and I love that view, because I think ultimately when you put the patient at the forefront of the decisions that you're making, it makes everything else fit into that equation, and it gives a justification to why we're doing what we do. And ultimately we're in that profession of healthcare, and so we need to care about the patient and what that outcome is. So it's great to see that. If we jump a little bit here with regards to myopia management and integrating it into someone's business offering, I know we've spoken about this briefly to this point, but how do you see an optometry practice incorporating myopia management and the strategies that involve, with regards to their business offering? Like, especially if let's say you're brand new and it's happening and you want to be a part of it, how would you advise, practice in that regard?
The first thing you do is you reach out to someone who's done it already, and they will literally probably give you everything you need to set you up. Any one of us that have done it for any amount of time will always help someone that's new to get into it.
Yeah.
Because what we don't want is for practitioners to find it difficult and then give up. So we'd rather just go, here's all the answers, go do it yourself, set your pricing or whatever, here's a guide, set it up, run it, and if you run into trouble, get in touch. And that just takes a lot of the heavy lifting out, because we've done all the things, we're going through all the different protocols and the ways that you've got to teach staff and all of those things. We've worked out all the general pricing of everything. It's we can make it pretty much out of the box now. It's not that difficult. So that's what I would probably encourage. And there's plenty of us out here who've done it. And if you're not confident talking to someone who's in your same town, then talk to someone who's in a different town and they'll help you.
Yeah, obviously I love that concept of reaching out for guidance, and the wheel has been created and you don't have to reinvent it by any means. It's about, recognizing who's walked the path and learn from them basically and learn to incorporate it. And I think, with regards to, say, training and in your staff, and I guess that aspect, I would imagine if you speak to somebody that's done it, they'll have insights. But let's say, a business wants to start in this method. You mentioned, was it Myopia Navigator at the beginning of our chat? Are there other tools that they can jump to just to,
yeah, of course,
get some more information on that? We could point them to.
If you check out Paul and Kate Gifford's website, I think it's up and running now, but they have actually developed a course for staff and practices that literally is like 101, get involved in myopia management. Like it's start to finish, it's everything you need.
Yeah.
Templates, the lot. So it's got everything you probably want. You need to use things like the Myopia Navigator in your chair, so it's part of your routine. That's where that's really useful, and it's all free. There's a vision simulator on the child myopia website from Cooper Vision that's really quite cool. It shows you what each level of myopia is with a picture on it. So you just dial up the myopia and it shows how blurry it goes. So these little tools that are there are fantastic. And, like I said, these never existed for us. We just have to improvise, so it is really good. There are also calculators as well, like BHVI's got a calculator that shows what your future myopia will be if you do nothing.
Yeah.
Generally, parents get it, though. They're like, the one sentence you do want to say is like, hey, when we were little, you'd just go to the optometrist and you get new glasses every sort of year or 6 months and things would get worse. Well, we don't do that anymore. Now we can actually treat the problem. And so we're going to talk about treatment and management of this. And that's the big change that's happened.
And with regards to, I guess this is more of a business-orientated question, but the potential business impacts of incorporating myopia management, and how have you seen it be successful in your practice, and how can other practices measure the success of it if they do decide to incorporate it into their offering?
So there's two things. It depends what your business dashboards are like. So we have KPIs and metrics that we look at for this in terms of like a business report that was developed by the Independent Optometry Group in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. So I can very easily see how profitable this is. But all myopia management is essentially highly profitable if it's really well in both a corporate scenario and a private practice setting, so independent optometry setting. If you're working in a corporate, just come and contact me or someone and we can help you with your business case, because you need to usually talk to someone in corporate about a business case to buy this and where the return on investment is and those sorts of things. Sometimes you have to do a net present value calculation, all those sorts of things that are quite helpful. But yeah, no, it's a very profitable thing. I'm not sure how much you want me to share. I'm happy to share anything you like. It's just I'm not sure what you're allowed to share, and because I know you guys have got rules over there. And
yeah, no, I think we've got to be mindful of all that as well. But at the end of the day, I think the point there is that people can contact you, and we'll definitely get your details and provide those in the show notes, so that if people do have particular questions in that instance, they can reach out to you and then you can speak to them. So we'll definitely make that available.
There's actually two things I've been playing with recently, and I think I've just been so surprised at it. There's a product by this Canadian guy, his name's Jason Carruthers, and it's called Ortho-K Launch. So what this guy does is he links up to your Facebook and your Instagram, and he serves you these videos, and you pay X amount a day, okay, on Facebook ads.
Right.
I've never seen something so successful as this.
Okay.
Basically, he generates leads for your practice to talk about Ortho-K. Just a separate aside, whether it's myopia control or not, I think it's important. And then I talked to an American colleague about it. He's done it as well. And we're both getting you're getting 60 people a week phoning up for this thing.
Right.
Yeah. And this is something that I just thought was, a bit, rubbish. But it's just crazy. Like, it's actually crazy. So who are wanting to come in for something. Now, lots of them don't actually need Ortho-K because they've got another eye disease or something, but you get to help them with keratoconus. Okay.
Yeah.
But so they're not they are a lead that comes into your practice. But I've just been so surprised at how reels and videos are just bringing in a whole different group that we hadn't seen. Normally just get referrals from other patients, and that's all we've ever done for marketing, just refer someone else in. This is the first time we've done something like this, and it's just, it's very interesting. So that's something that your listeners might want to have a look at.
Too. What was the name of that system?
It's called orthoklaunch.com or something like that. Jason Carruthers is the guy's name.
Okay, we'll look into that and provide that. Again, if people want to have a look around and see what that is. Definitely video is very much on trend now with regards to promotion of services. And I think it speaks to the fact that if you develop this niche, and, this is the broader context, I guess, of the conversation, is that there's a bit of a niche here that you can develop and incorporate into your practice. And then if you promote that in turn is one way to improve your business operations with regards to getting new patients from that point of view. So I could totally understand why, if they've developed this system, which really is pivotal with regards to promoting a particular aspect of eye care, and it can, penetrate quite deeply with that regard. And so it gets people inquiring. And again, like you said, they may not necessarily need it, but it gives you an opportunity to look after them and provide a service to them.
Yeah.
All right. If we change tune a little bit with regards to myopia management, back to your research contributions. You did mention earlier the New Zealand Eye Research Centre. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, and what's the research being conducted there? And is there any impact that that's doing with regards to myopia management or anything else that we've discussed?
Sure, yeah. So we've set up the New Zealand Eye Research Centre where we do research projects, a bit of both. So some of them are commercial. So a sponsor will reach out to us and go, hey, can you run this trial for us and do this? And we'll say, yes, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And we're doing all sorts of research at the moment, from Ortho-K to eye drops to other myopia control sort of interventions. I can't talk about all of it, but one quite cool one that we're looking at doing coming up soon is we're looking at the effects of combining red light therapy and other treatments.
Yep.
So that's more of a passion project to see how that's going to go. So, yeah, there's quite a few things going on. And the whole idea of it is actually to get eventually to have it sort of a bit more philanthropic. So although we're loosely connected to universities, when you get the commercial funds coming in from a company that wants to test out a new glasses product or something, let's say, well, then we can put a portion of that to one side and go, hey, let's research this. And then we can fund potentially a PhD student or a master's student who wants to do something interesting. But, some of the challenges is that when you have research is that you kind of have to do the commercial research as well as, your own research projects, because some things are just not that sexy to companies. And so you can't really do them unless, you do the other work first. So, yeah.
As well, yeah. No, that makes sense. And how do the clinical trials at your research centre contribute to the global understanding of myopia? If we look at that as a particular, I guess, topic point, is there anything there that you can sort of speak to or refer to with regards to some of the things that you've seen, developing in that space?
The only thing we'll sort of say is that we're looking to add more contributions to global research. And so we're keen to hear about project ideas from people who want to do more research in myopia and want to partner in that, or want to work together on some innovative things that may be a bit more sensitive, or even things that we already know about. We're genuinely interested in them. We also do a bit of dry eye stuff and ophthalmology work with intraocular lenses. So that's where we've got access to ophthalmology colleagues who can support our research as well. So, and
is that available to Australian optoms as well, and professionals,
yeah, sure.
Or is it pretty much?
Yeah. No, to anyone. So, because remember, I've got an appointment with one of the universities in Australia, as well as we work closely with some colleagues in Auckland University, and as well as sort of Deakin. So we're trying to do things that cross sort of both, and you kind of work with one side when it's more relevant to Australia maybe, and then another side when it's more relevant here. And then there are other universities around the world that we collaborate with as well.
I definitely love that I guess that passion for education and learning, it obviously speaks, and that inclusiveness of, getting people's ideas and providing that collaborative space where someone can come and can contribute in their particular way with their particular passion as well, potentially with regards to the context of the conditions that we're talking about. So I think that's awesome. That's good to know. And if our listeners are out there and curious about that, again, another reason to contact you and speak to you about that and see where that goes. One thing that's important, and I think it's gaining a little bit of traction here, there are a couple of things that are, I think, occurring in Australia in the next sort of, 18 sort of months or so, is education and outreach. With particular reference to myopia, how important do you see patient and public education in managing this? I won't call it an epidemic necessarily. Some may refer to it as that, but in managing this.
Look, it's just a massive effort, and we have to basically make myopia a household name, like you heard about LASIK. Everyone knows what laser surgery is. Everyone knows what LASIK is, right? So that's a team effort from industry, and what it actually needs is like what they did over in the Northern Hemisphere with GMAC. They created the Global Myopia Coalition, which is basically industry getting together and going, hey guys, let's just put a truckload of money in and sort this out. And they all kind of working together to try and do stuff. That's probably the best bang for buck, rather than say Cooper doing something here and then Essilor doing something here and then Hoya doing something here. It's probably better to get everyone in the room and go, right, we've got about $10 million. What are we going to do with it? Let's just do one thing. And that would be really helpful. But I don't know whether that's real or not. I don't know if we'll get there.
Yeah, I think from my understanding, there is something in the works, I think, from the Australian point of view in that regard, where there is that contributory aspect to how we're doing this from all elements of the industry, not just one. And as you mentioned, there are lens solutions, there are contact lens solutions, there are other solutions. And so it's also presenting a face to the audience or to the customers or the patients that as an industry, we are coming together on this and we're promoting this as it's like glaucoma, for example, in the Glaucoma Australia, when that was a big thing. And I think one thing that I've been privy to with regards to conversations I've had is this whole concept of, we see myopia management naturally as something that the optometrist will be responsible for looking after. And that's what we just come to learn, or being part of that in any case. But does the community see it in the same light? And we've got to make sure that they do see that, because, it's not necessarily whether they think maybe the GP is the best person to go to or whoever that might be. I think that community outreach is really critical, so they know if there is anything myopia related, that they will go straight to the optom. It's a given for us to think that, but I think, the everyday consumer or the everyday patient may not necessarily make that connection. So I think there's an important aspect in that as well.
I mean, if you look at systems like, Captivate in the UK, you can now buy for like $1 a time a token, where you can share videos to your patients that really clearly explain why we treat myopia, what it is, what's a MySight contact lens, and all this stuff. It's called Captivate Connect, is the product he's on, Trusted Dave. These products are just are great. They're all going to work really well in synergy. The other thing that everyone has to remember, though, now is that we're in the age of collaborative business. This is basically how everyone grows. So it's no longer competition. It's about how do we work together, and then everyone grows the whole pot.
The whole thing. Yeah, correct. I totally agree. I think with something like this as well, it is so far reaching that there's no one individual or company or group that's going to benefit. It's really everyone that's going to not necessarily benefit, but be part of this solution and sorting this particular, problem out. With regards to the strategies that you've put in place for your store, what have you found to be effective in educating patients about myopia control? Is it the videos? Are there other things that you're doing that you notice that have a better outcome? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's just giving it the time. So what you do is you discover someone in an eye exam, whether it's a half an hour eye exam, 45 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever, wherever you work. You find out they've got the problem. Then you give them some information to digest about it, and you get them to come back for 15 minutes. And then you go, right, I'm going to get you to read the stuff, come back, and then we're going to figure out a plan. The plan might be do nothing, okay? Not my preferred solution, but it's a solution. But we're going to make a plan together because we need to do something about this. And then it's like a pause that gets, and then everyone starts to get on the same page. There are more people now who live in split families. So then dad's got to come along, and I've got to have a conversation with dad who's separate to mum, or whatever's happening. So it's about getting people on the journey together. And that's probably the main key thing, is make sure everyone understands what we're doing. We're not just prescribing glasses. We're actually doing something about this. And this is for the future of this child or adult or whoever. It's about our vision over our whole life, not our vision right now.
And that strategy that you speak about, where you effectively are speaking to them in the initial consultation about it and recognizing it, but then maybe booking a follow-up appointment to speak about it exclusively or as the main reason. And then in between those appointments, having maybe some collateral or some information go out to them about that as well. It's a methodology I've seen applied in a few US-based practices, and they've developed videos, and their strategy when it comes to that is identify in, say, more of a general consultation what their concerns might be, or identify whether they know it or not, and then do that follow-up appointment. And in between, send them information about that. So the next time they come in, they've got that knowledge and understanding a little bit more. And so then, you can have a more beneficial second appointment, I guess. Yeah. Was that what you're referring to as well?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Yeah. So it's just about educating people without overwhelming them, making sure they know that we're here to look after them and their family, and then we can make a good decision together. Sometimes it's cost. It's actually never really cost. They always find the money. That's not the issue. But people blame that. It's not. They just need some time to process.
Yeah, absolutely. As we sort of draw to a conclusion on today's chat, which has been great, and I've really appreciated your time, how do you foresee this field and myopia management in that instance, really evolving? I know we've spoken about red light therapy as one part of that, but I guess in that general commercial sense, and also as a solution with regards to dealing with the problem, how do you foresee this field evolving in the next decade, say?
Like I said before, I think to sum it up, we're going to get to a point where we know a lot more about the eye. There's still lots to know. The technology's hitting a point where I was in Hong Kong a few months ago and I saw a machine that maps the retina, and then this company uses that machine to customize the myopia control effect in a pair of glasses to get a better effect than all these other products out there. So it's integration of hardware and software to produce a glasses lens that's bespoke, right? So think of it like a bespoke MioSmart, putting more dots in one spot and that, because that's where the retina curves and those things. So you're going to see technology like that and more of that hybridization of things, like where things are moving in together. I think you're going to see probably a point where we can just fully control it and know that, we're going to get growth in the right way. And if something's a -1, we may even see that we can get them down to a -0.5. We're going to see better early detection things. You're going to see a role for machine learning and predictive models of family members, because we just have so much data now.
Right. Wow.
So that's where I think we'll go. And I think with optical laboratories, maybe we might see a bit more innovation and development if the technology isn't brought out with these liquid lenses that they're talking about, where we can have this pair of glasses that's truly adaptable. This is quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I definitely think with regards to that evolution, I think it's happening quite quickly now. And now that we're all mindful of it, it is exciting where it's going to lead to. But I like the confidence that you have with regards to that this is something that we can definitely get in control of, and we can stop it to some extent, because I guess as the narrative is initially developing and, as the community becomes aware of it, it might be quite a bit of a fear element. And I know that, from the point of view of some of the research I've seen, number one fear for parents these days isn't actually bullying. It's too much screen time and, the implications of what that might have for them. So I think as the message gets out there to the community, I think there's that initial fear element, but then to have the confidence with our professional services to know that we know about this issue, we can solve this issue. There is a remedy that can achieve some type of outcome that's successful. It then will ease people's concerns, and parents in particular, when we're talking about, myopia management and its evolution at the moment. So that's awesome. Yeah. With regards to some key take-homes for our audience today, what are some of the things that, if you were speaking to people now that are listening, that you'd want to give them a few parting comments with regards to the context of our conversation today? What would they be, sort of some take-home messages?
If you think you want to get into myopia management, just get it done and do it. Take action. Don't be afraid to reach out. And like I said, collaborative business is the future. By working together, we can achieve a huge amount. And I just think that's really important. And just don't be scared. Any of us are really approachable and want to help and support. There's a plethora of products out there, so contact them. Contact everyone there. for that. That would be probably the main thing.
Yeah. And on that note, if people do want to reach out and contact you, what's the best way that they can find you?
The best way you can find me is on probably LinkedIn, I'd say.
Yep.
You got my email anyway, but
yes,
if you contact probably yourself as the host, you can probably just give them my mobile privately.
Yeah, no problems at all. Yeah, I'll provide that information in the show notes there as well, so people can link in with you and can reach out and ask you any questions that they may have. But Jagrut, thank you so much for your time. It's been really insightful, and it's something that I'm very excited about as a topic, as an area, and I hope to have more conversations with you in the future about this stuff.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thank you for joining us on The Focused View, proudly presented by Opto-K. It's been our privilege to share the insights and stories that resonate deeply with the eye care community. We hope today's episode has not only inspired you, but also armed you with the practical strategies and innovative ideas to help you enhance your practice and professional journey. If you found value in our conversation, we'd be grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform. And share this episode with your colleagues. It helps us reach more eye care professionals like you and grow our community of visionaries. Stay connected by subscribing to The Focused View and visiting our website www.thefocusedview.com.au for additional resources and episode summaries. We look forward to your company again in our next episode. Until then, keep focused. I'm Michael Nasser. Bye for now.